Hey, what's up, YouTube? It says I'm live. We're using a little bit different of a setup here. So Ellis is still over there off the camera as usual. He's gonna have the volume up a little bit. Make sure I. Okay,
That's good.
see,
Yeah.
we got it. All right. Hey, everybody, welcome to Small Group. Happy Father's Day, by the way, to all the dads out there. You know I'm a dad now, so I've been called dad by some of you for a while. So I've gotten used to the title already, but I've actually been a dad for almost 2 years. So very cool. But to all the other dads out there, students, if you're watching, make sure you tell your dad Happy Father's Day. Because if you got a dad around, not everybody can say that. So you should cherish him, be grateful that he's around. Hey, tonight we have a little bit different of a format. I figured with it being Father's Day and it being beautiful outside, again, we keep getting beautiful Sunday nights, which is great for a beautiful night weekend. Not so great when you want people to be inside on YouTube. So I know it says we got 4 here. So I know it's not a huge crowd tonight. So we have a little bit different setup. I'm just streaming from a laptop here. That's why the camera's a little grainy. The walls kind of really plain. And our talk tonight is going to be a little shorter than usual, just so you can enjoy your dad. I know a lot of people aren't here because they're spending time with their dad, which is great. So we don't want to take away your time from that. However, we also don't want to not meet. I could be with my family too right now, but it's really important that we meet and talk. And so tonight's gonna be a little shorter just because of that. And also, I know that not gonna lie, I know our online presence is losing steam a little bit here. Not that it's ever gonna go away. In fact, we hope to put more energy into it when we actually, return to normal, as we've probably heard 1,000 times over the past couple months. But uh, yeah, so we want to just come at you pretty quick with this. On that note, though, for returning, if you don't know, our student activities are coming back soon. So at Powhatan, they're coming back July 12th, right here at the Powhatan campus, which is where we are now, in person. There are of course going to be like some social distancing stuff in place, and I can give you a little more detail than we even had last week. And that's kind of be the format. We're gonna really start communicating it pretty hard this coming week via our online presence and also email. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel. You go follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Those will be like the 3 primary places you'll hear from it. But also check your email. Check your email. Because we want to make sure that you have the information that you need. But basically, what we're going to do is for the summer, sort of focus on more event based gatherings, if you will. So instead of at Powhatan specifically, and this will kind of be the case at our other campuses too. But I know some of our other student groups we don't actually break up because the whole group is one small group, which is awesome. So this next line kind of won't apply, but the overarching idea will apply. At Powhatan, we won't actually break into our small groups. So we're going to spend our time together the whole time, utilizing our large spaces like the big room or outside, of course. And we're going to lean really hard into our events. So a lot of you, maybe you've seen a couple of your friends because you've just decided, well, you know what? I've been stuck inside too long. I want to see some of my friends. I couldn't blame you. I'm going to see some of my friends after this. I don't blame you at all for that. But you haven't had the chance to see a lot of your church friends here. So we want to give you that space. Usually we wouldn't even be meeting in the summer anyway. So we are going to emphasize the events, and we've got a couple coming up. Like the river float we're going to do that again because it's pretty easy to distance on the river. So we're going to do that again. I think there might be some like Olympics-esque event in the works. It's not on the calendar, but the Olympics got canceled this year, so we're going to bring them back, baby. More details on that later and all these, but we're gonna do stuff like that and have a short time of like Devo, and talk about talk about Jesus a little bit, of course. But for the most part, give y'all a space to hang out with your friends and sort of be back together. And then in the fall, we're really going to sort of kick off our series and stuff again. And who knows where we'll be at that time with the phases and all that. But the hope is we can like go back to small groups at that point. But of course, like everything has been since March, that is TBD, to be determined. So it's all fluid. We appreciate your patience with us as we try and figure this stuff out. Again, I know I'm only speaking to 4 people now, so if when this video is over, by the way, you can share it, and not only will it be good biblical content for you, it'll also be good announcement stuff for other parents and students who might care. So yeah, if you like the video, go ahead and click the thumbs up. If you want to share it, that would be really helpful to us. Happy Father's Day. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mama T. I appreciate that. All right. So tonight, as I said, somebody liked the video. Nice. I see you. Tonight, as I said, we're not going to go the whole hour, but I do want to talk briefly. From now on until the fall, we're going to do sort of what we call one-off little talks. So imagine you're reading a daily devotional or something, and you today's devotional might be a different topic than tomorrow's, and was a different topic than the times before. We almost always operate under series, and we're not getting away from that. I much prefer that style. But with just sort of the events, and we don't know how they're going to go, and we want to emphasize you guys hanging out, we're just sort of going to do one-off stuff from here to the end of the summer, basically. So tonight, I decided to title what we're going to talk about, where do we go from here? And basically the gist of why I called it that is because there's just so much happening right now. To say that this is like an unprecedented time in our history, in America's history, would be accurate. But to say that it's an unprecedented time in our world, I think would also not be an understatement. I think that would be accurate as well. And the way the world kind of works, whether this is a good or a bad thing, is sort of the concerns and questions on the minds of America becomes a lot of the concern on the minds of people around the world. And maybe not our typical day-to-day stuff, but our major talking points. They bleed over into world news. And so the world is talking a lot about COVID and race specifically. Inequality of Black people in America. Now, we'll get to that more in a second. But the reason I called it is where do we go from here is because particularly for you, it's got to be so hard to even know what to think, to keep up. And trust me, that is not different for adults either. It feels like nothing that I've experienced in my lifetime. And I know I'm still in my 20s, hanging on by a thread in my 20s. So I haven't lived like a whole life, of course, at this point. But there was nothing that we were taught in the past, I would say at least 50 years, that feels like what this does. And so the question is, well, what do we even do? Like as a teenager, what in the world am I supposed to do? So it's where do we go from here? Because there's just so much to navigate, so much to talk about. And of course, we're not going to talk about it all right here. In fact, please don't log off because, as I said, this isn't going to be super long. Okay, I'm gonna hint at a couple of topics and actually pitch something to you guys that we're doing tomorrow, Ellis and I. Which, by the way, I think I mentioned it already, but he is right over there. So there's his hands. What up? You're in. You're good. He's right there. So if you want to chat and make comments, I don't have any particular questions for you, but if you want to chat and make comments, please do. He can see them. I actually can see them too, but I'm trying to sort of focus on the camera. So Ellis, shout those out to me if we do get some.
You got it.
But the question is where do we even go? What do we do, particularly for the student? Okay, because for you guys, for teenagers, because again, this is what the mixture and the stars aligning, if you will, of all these subjects and all these events is absolutely insane. And so I wanted to spend just a little bit of time, of course, not nearly enough to cover it all, but just a little bit of time on some of the things that I'm talking about. The first, I want to answer 3 questions tonight. What can I do in the face of all this stuff? What should I do? And the question that this is named after, where do we go from here? So we're going to start with what can I do? And the answer to this is, well, there's a lot of things you could do, right? What can I do is, you could have a cop out and be like, well, whatever you want, like I can do anything. You could lash out on social media if you really wanted to. Plenty of people are doing that, and that's been sort of a hotbed of social media for a long time. This is lashing out on social media is not new to 2020. But you could do that if you really wanted to, I guess. You could be angry. You could let anger build up in you. In whatever subject you're thinking about, whether it's COVID and masks or race or anything else, you could be really angry about it. The Confederate flag, the monuments, whatever it is, you could just be angry if you really wanted to. You could shut down and just assume that all hope is lost. I know people that are kind of doing that. Like, well, it's the end time, so doesn't really matter what I do now. You know what I mean? Which sounds extreme, but I've seen plenty of people say this must be the end times, which also, by the way, is not new. People say that all the time, okay? So you should not be afraid by that. Or you could just do nothing. Like, technically, you could do nothing. You could maybe not assume all hope is lost, but also say, well, none of this really affects me very much. So I'm just not going to mess with it. I'm just going to do what I've always done. I'm just going to play my video games. I'm just going to talk to my friends. I'm just going to scroll through social media. I'm just going to look at memes. I'm just going to binge TikTok, whatever it is that you do. You could just do that. But are any of those the things that you should do? No. Now, let me be clear before I answer what you should do. I know the question is, what should you do? I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. The beautiful part about Jesus and being a follower of Christ is that you actually get to pick whether or not you do that. And I don't get to make that choice for you. God chooses not to make that choice for you. God can do anything he wants, but he's decided that he's going to give you the power to make that decision, which is extremely humbling, by the way, if you think about it. Somebody who could do exactly what he hopes everyone does, but chooses not to, despite how bad it could get. That's crazy. It's hard to think about. It's something that you and I really can't relate to, because if we knew we had the power to make something happen that we really wanted to happen and saw that it wasn't happening, we probably would make it happen. You know what I mean? I don't know if that sentence was confusing or not, but just rewind it if you need to catch it again, because I said it perfectly. No, but I see that, Z, you said you could be a light to someone's darkest day. Yes. And that's kind of what we're going to get to. In my opinion, and this is what I'm trying to model, okay, the first thing you should do, you can do all that other stuff, and that's your call, but the first thing you should do, whether you are a Christ follower or not, is listen. Okay? Listen. James 1, chapter 1, verse 19 says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Like I said, our first job as people, whether we go to church or follow God or have given him our lives or not, should be to listen first. And this isn't to try and convince yourself of someone else's way of thinking. In fact, we actually talked about this a few months ago, right before all of this started in our At the Movie series. We talked about empathy and trying to just listen and understand. Empathy, trying to listen, it's not so you can convert someone else to your way of thinking or be converted to someone else's way of thinking. It's literally just trying to understand where somebody might be coming from. Let me give you a good example of this with one of our hot topics. COVID-19, specifically the wearing of masks. Okay. I don't know how you feel about wearing masks. And again, I'm not here to tell you how to feel about wearing masks. Okay. I have my mask right here. Okay. My mom made this one. She gave it to me. I take it with me. It sits in my car. Probably should wash it. But it sits in my car and I use it all over the place. But I'm not here to tell you what you should do. All I'm here to tell you is assume that somebody is on the other side of the mask debate. Let's say that you personally are like, well, I don't really see the point. It's really hard to breathe in it. I haven't found one that fits me well. Whatever your reason is for not wearing one, whatever it is, let's assume that you're talking to somebody who's on the other side, who's like, you should wear one wherever you go. It's easy, and we've seen so much of this, to just say, well, you're wrong. And because you feel that way, we really can't associate anymore, which is not what we want to do. That was what I said at the beginning. You could lash out. And even if you say something like that respectively, it's not the first step you should take. Again, you don't have to, if I wear a mask and you don't, and I tell you why, you don't have to be like, oh, well, okay, I should wear a mask now. It just means that you heard me out. You know what I mean? Like, the point is to listen to why someone might be concerned with wearing a mask. We just don't know that if somebody wearing a mask is a caretaker for somebody who's really high risk for COVID. You know what I mean? And we know about COVID that people can have it and be asymptomatic, meaning they don't actually show any symptoms. And it would be really easy to pass it to this person that they're caring for. You know what I mean? And I know you've heard all this stuff before, but what I'm saying is whatever side we fall on, let's do the other way, right? I wear a mask and I'm like, why don't you wear a mask? It's really easy. Come on, wear a mask. It's not a big deal. You're silly. You know what I mean? But I don't say it as nicely. You could say, like, you might have good reason for not wearing a mask. You could say, look, when I wear a mask, I have glasses, and my glasses, they just fog up like crazy, and I have to wear my glasses because, I can't afford contacts or whatever, and I just can't. I can't drive. I can't see. Like, if I'm wearing a mask, I just can't. Like, that's a decent reason, and I should at least be willing to hear it out. You know what I mean? And again, not that I'm gonna then suddenly be like, oh, well, because you wear glasses, I shouldn't wear a mask anymore. Of course not. Like, I don't wear glasses. It's not a thing for me. But the point is to listen. The second one is the race conversation we were talking about earlier. Now, before you log off, okay, let me just say we're not going to tackle everything right here on the stream. In fact, Ellis and I are talking tomorrow night. If you're watching this live, you know that. But Monday night, Monday the 22nd, at 5:30 on our Instagram page, on PCC Passion Community Church's Instagram page at PCC Wired. Ellis and I are talking specifically about race, about inequality, and I think it's going to be great. So you should definitely go over there, and that's where we're going to have the bulk of this conversation that I'm about to spill out. At least for now, I do want to let you know that this conversation is extremely important. And it's important no matter what's going on, no matter when, even if we thought, hey, everyone is being treated fairly in America, it would still be an important conversation to remind ourselves. We do that with anything else, right? We always say, hey, you should love your neighbor. And not that everybody does that, but everybody can agree that that's a good thing, right? And particularly people in the church, we can all agree that that's a good thing and that we should strive to do that. And even when it's happening well, we need to keep reminding ourselves to do it. The same is true about race and about equality. Hey, treating all people the same despite their skin color, that's just something we should be doing. And even if we're doing it well, we should be talking about it still to make sure that we're still doing it well. So with that being said, it's going to become part of our normal routine here at PCC Students going forward. Now, as far as the whole series goes, like I said, it probably won't be till the fall. We will bring it up like I am now, and what we're going to do tomorrow night and things like that, because it's important and we don't want to let the conversation die out. But anyway, all that to say is that I just want to say this one thing on this subject right now. We can still listen. We don't have to agree with everything that's being said on this subject. We don't have to agree with methods with which the things are being said. You don't have to agree with looting. You don't have to agree with anarchy in the streets. You don't even have to agree with defund the police. You don't have to agree that all cops are bad. You don't have to believe that anything that's been said. But you do need to listen, because here's the truth. And I'm gonna read this because I wrote it intentionally to say it intentionally and to say it right. The undeniable truth is that there are more stories than there should be about Black people being mistreated in America. Mistreatment at any frequency is too much, but the stories are numerous and they're heartbreaking from our Black brothers and sisters, and we need to listen. We've just got to listen to the stories. We've got to listen to what they've been saying, been trying to say for a while. And I'm speaking to people like me. It's a white people, of course, but it goes for everybody. We have all got to listen. And again, we don't have to agree on every single thing that's said. Like, I think I'm safe to say that not all Black people agree about everything in their lives. Like, of course not. Okay. But we need to at least listen. And I think that's key. And again, we'll talk more about that at a later time. But the point is that listening extends to any subject I could conjure up. Those are sort of our two hot topics right now. But anything that comes up, elections, right? Democrat, Republican. That's a huge dividing line in this nation. Everything seems to get divided by that. You can listen to the other side. You can. Any subject I could come up with, you can listen. You can start by listening. The second thing I want to bring up on this, and there's more than this, but here's the second thing, particularly for the Christ follower: just live like Jesus lived. Now, I know this sounds cliche and generic, okay, but just hear me out. You see, your words are one thing. When you've listened and you feel like you have words, your words are good. You know, when you're saying the right thing, when you're saying what you mean, that's great. And you should use your voice, and we'll get to that in a minute. But your actions speak volumes over your words. And Jesus, he wasn't just a man of words. He was a man of action. Now, Jesus, he said a ton of words. He said so much, all of which you can read in the Gospels and beyond. But he also acted. He also put action to his words. You know, James says it like this: do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Couldn't be more plain than that, right? It's one thing to say, as I brought up earlier, love your neighbor as yourself. And that's great to say. You should say that. You should tell people that. But if you don't do it, then what was the point? In fact, it makes it look worse, right? And that's what gets us in trouble a lot. And let me just speak for me for a minute. It's so easy to say the right thing. I know all the Christian lingo in the book. Okay. I grew up in church. I've been going to church for almost 30 years, and I'm 29. Okay, so I've been in church since the day I was born, and I've never left. I've never left the church, just because I've been really fortunate and blessed to have seen God work and move, and I didn't really go through a crisis of faith like young people tend to do when they get to college and stuff. People who grew up in the church specifically. But that means I could say anything. I could say anything, and you would be like, wow, that dude gets it. That dude knows what he's talking about. And that's not to brag on me. It's just that I've heard pretty much all of the lingo at this point in my life. But there have been plenty of times where I've said something, but then not done the thing I was talking about. There have been plenty of times on many a record in PCC students where I said I was one person, but was another. And I've told you guys all about that saga, and there's more, but I mean, there's more, and because I mess up all the time. The point is that I'm not perfect, and I've done that, but that's the goal. That's the hope, is that when we talk it, we actually live it, because when we live it, that's when people actually see it. There's this old Andy Mineo song. I don't know if y'all are into Andy Mineo. You into Andy Mineo, Ellis?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I don't know. What's the earliest album of his that you've heard?
Oh, dude, I don't know.
All right.
I don't know like that.
Well, he has an album that, like, when he first signed with the label he's on, called Heroes for Sale. Mm-hmm. And there's this one song called Wild Things. It was like a play. You know how they like remade the Where the Wild Things Are movie several years ago? It was like right around when that came out, so it's kind of relevant. The song was like, he wants to be where the wild things are, meaning like people who don't go to church, be the sinners, if you will. And there's a line in there, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but the gist of it is he says something like, look, I'm there because my life might be the only Bible that they've ever seen. And that's a great line because it speaks to actually living what you're reading, and we have the opportunity, you have the opportunity to make that happen by living the way Jesus lived. And John, in John chapter 13, verse 35, who was with Jesus, by the way, said, your love for one another. Well, Jesus said this, but it's written in John. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. Your love for one another is what's going to prove to people that we actually believe what we say and we actually live it. Our love for one another is going to do that. We love one another by listening. We love one another by actually taking action on the words we say. So the last question to wrap up I want to answer is, where do we go from here? That's the tough question, right? Because it's easy, as I just said, to say all of those things and then to maybe not do them, or to just forget about it, And this answer could be very long. I'm not gonna spend too much time answering it. I'm just saying there are a lot of options. But I mostly want to encourage you, Generation Z, and I don't say that as I'm slang, like literally your Generation Z. I'm the millennial, your Generation Z. Our generation, you and me, we are in prime position to be the change agents for the world. It is on us to make this happen. And whether or not you think that's fair, you think the problems of yesteryear shouldn't be our problems of today because we didn't do any of that, it doesn't matter, okay? Because they're here. But the encouraging part is that you and I, we have a chance to literally reshape and change the world. Not for the sake of reshaping and changing the world, but because God asked us to do it. In Acts 1, verse 8, it said, go out into Judea and Samaria in the world and proclaim the good news of Jesus. He told his disciples that, but he didn't just tell them that. He told you and me that. And we have the chance to actually be the change in the world. We have the chance to be the change in the world. You should let that sink in, because I know that generations before have said that. And you know what? yeah, not everything about the world is bad. There's plenty of good things in the world. And I'm not saying we need to restructure everything about America and our planet or anything like that. I'm just saying there are issues at hand. There are pressing issues at hand that our ancestors, whatever you want to call them, maybe tried to figure out but just didn't quite. But we have the chance to do it. And I know that we can. Because why not? Why not us, right? If we can't do it, who's going to do it? If we're not going to do it, who's going to do it? We're going to leave it to our kids. We're going to leave it to our younger siblings, even. For some of you who might have, like a 5-year-old little brother or sister or something. Are we just going to leave it to them? No, we have the chance to do it. We have the chance to at least begin turning the flywheel on a nation and on a world that they can grow up in and be proud of again because of what the action we took in our willingness to listen first, to live like Jesus first. What if we became, Gen Z? My title's millennial, right? I was given millennial for a number of reasons, but mostly because the millennium turned during my generation. And then you, of course, have the baby boomers, and you have, we've all been given names describing something that was a big deal in our time. What if your generation ends up being called the listening generation? How awesome would that be? The take action generation. Our words just aren't words, but they have meaning because we actually did something with them generation. That'd be quite the cumbersome title, but you understand what I'm saying. The point is you have a chance. Not later. You haven't already missed it. Now. Right now. To define your generation as the one that really made the changes that we need and that we see. And there are plenty of more problems that we haven't even talked about. But again, there's also some great things that have come before you. So let's think about the good things and where we've come from, but also recognize that there are things that need to be different. And let's listen first. Let's live like Jesus did. Actually live it. And we can change stuff. We can for sure change stuff. So I'm going to pray for us before we go. And then that'll be it. It's just over 30 minutes instead of an hour, but that'll be it. I hope that we can continue to, like I said, I know we're going to meet here in a minute, but not literally in a minute, you know what I mean, in a few weeks. But this online is still going to go on. And so I hope that if you're not comfortable coming back yet, that's okay. You can be here with me. I'll still be hosting it. It'll probably be similar to this, just because people will be here in the building. So probably won't set up a huge elaborate rig or anything, but we're going to continue to do this. And so invite your friends if y'all aren't comfortable coming yet. Again, because this is on YouTube, it immediately gets posted after this, so you can share it, put it on your Facebook, and let's generate some conversation. Let's show people that this is the time. We have the power to make changes. We have the power to be the people God's called us to be. And it's not up to anybody but us to make it happen. So with that, I'm going to pray, and then we'll be out. God, thank you so much for today and for the opportunity to utilize technology and YouTube for your purpose. God, you've always been in the business of leveraging things for your will, for using them for your will, and technology and computers and YouTube and live streaming. None of that is any different. Lord, we want to bend it to your will. And so thank you for the opportunity to do that. God, would we be a generation or generations that listens first, that seeks to understand other people before we make judgment calls? And it's so much easier said than done, but God, it can be done. And if we all did it, we can just imagine what our nation, what our world would look like. But will we also be the people who don't just say things who don't just say we should love our neighbor, who don't just say we should put God first, who don't just say we should read the Bible every day, who don't just say people should be treated equally and then do nothing. But may we be the people who can say that and then actually live it. Because that's what you called us to do. Words are meaningless without their action. But action without purpose is also kind of meaningless. So would we use the two in tandem? That's what they were meant to do. Give it purpose, speak it, and mean it, but also go do it. That way we can be people of integrity, people who follow you, God. Thank you for each and every student, both watching and not. Just grateful for them and the fact that they, in a lot of cases, literally hold the future in their hands. It's unfair to ask our young people to do that, but it doesn't matter. Every generation of young people has been asked to do that before us. But would we be the ones? Would we realize that there's no reason we can't be the ones to actually do what needs to be done, to celebrate the great things happening, but also to lament and help speak out against the things that aren't, but also work together, work in peace, work in empathy with one another to reach our common goal, which is to make your name famous here, near, and far away, God. We love you, and we thank you so much. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. Again, go ahead and like the video if you haven't already. You can also share it, as I said, but I appreciate you guys. J and Z, y'all are like super faithful. I'm pretty sure it's J and Z, Mama T, Ellis, and me, I think. But it doesn't matter. I'm glad to do this with y'all. Y'all should just come up here next time. But yeah, so hey, thank you so much for being here. If you're watching this later, of course, I really appreciate you're here too. But until next week, hope you have a safe week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you then. Goodbye.